Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson,
I'm Carson Grubaugh in here somewhere.
and today we're going to be doing a well, I don't know if I'd call this a full recreation, but we're going to be looking at a image from JAE Lee's Hell Shock, and this is just a fantastic image. We talked a lot about this artwork in the previous video, so please like and subscribe. And take a look at that previous video if you want to see us geeking out about the art a little bit. But now we want to just talk about the visual. And so this has a lot of really intensive ink techniques, both additive and subtractive. And in this case, not only are we going to demonstrate the techniques, it's actually easier for us and a little bit less exploratory to figure out what's going on because we've got a color scan of the issue. So Carson, where did you get this color scan
This
from?
this was on Heritage Auctions. I'm just zoomed in on the one panel. But like I said, they were auctioning each issue, I think from both volumes, as whole packages. So you could look at, like, you could buy, I think it was like $60,000, buy all of issue 1 of
Mm.
volume 1, and then you could buy all of volume 2. So I believe this is from issue 4 of volume 1 that I got this scan.
And this is in full on Bill Sienkiewicz freakout mode
Yeah.
here. So you've got all of the different techniques that you can see here. And I was talking about additive and subtractive. So for instance, additive meaning that like the white there, he's spattering with white in some areas, and then in other places he's subtracting using razor blades to cut away. And you can see like the white lines that are going across the figure there are all razor blade. You can see, in fact, a few places down on the lower right of the part that Carson just circled, where you can see the razor blade interacting with itself when he crossed, and it's picking up parts of the paper there. Same thing with the eyes, the beams coming out of the eyes up there. You can see areas where the different layers of lines are sort of intersecting with each other, and it's tearing up the paper or the Bristol board or whatever it is. And
Also
and
some reductive with the white here to like actually shape the fingers to set them out from the splatter
right,
that's been done.
it's interesting. That was a little bit in the air at the time. This type of technique was having a little bit of a renaissance at the time. This was from 1994. Who did you have at the time? You had Mark Teixeira did some of that for his finishes, and then and then Sam Keith in the Max. There's a little bit of
Keith,
that.
Sienkiewicz, Dave McKean. That
Uh,
seems like a lot of the people that were doing this type of stuff.
if
But
disappointing oftentimes in reproduction, because you really oftentimes don't get all of the texture and stuff as you do in the original. Of course, there are ways to do it, but
John knows
uh,
how. There'll be forthcoming videos about all of it.
but yeah, it's interesting. Like looking at the hatching there on the hand, you can see where he went and built up the hatching with some modeling, and then for whatever reason, it just looked too firm. So when he's going back in there and spattering, he just goes ahead and spatters in a bunch of white, and it sort of de-emphasizes the linearity of the hatching.
I think he hatched on top of it though. Those
You
lines
think?
right on top of everything. So I think what happened here is he just put a black, then splattered white, and then hatched
We'd
on
have to
top
see
of
it.
it, which is quite well, because there's integrity to the hatch lines. There's
Hmm.
no spattering over any of them. They ride on top of everything, which is impressive because it's difficult to draw on top of at least what I've got, which is this Doc Martin bleed proof white, which is kind of like the China
Uh,
white. I'm thinking
yeah,
he's using an acrylic paint.
bleed proof white is tough. That stuff is uh, no bueno in my estimation. But
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull it off. Like a white acrylic paint is my best guess
yeah,
for some
or
of the techniques, because he's got a lot of like
gouache.
drip in some of his images. Yeah, maybe gouache. but he's definitely drawing black back over top of it here. All that hatching's the last thing to go in.
Very interesting.
Yeah, you can see for sure. It's like you can see it here too. There was basically a big black chunk that he did, and then he sprayed white over it, like all through here, and then drew back over top of it a bit. I mean, there might have been some ink drawing underneath it all too, but anyways, we'll get to that in the what our best guess. Obviously, on this one, I'm really going to have to leave this up because a lot of a lot of the evidence of the line making is going to disappear under all of the splattering we do. So I'm just going to have to reference that. But I was very curious looking at some of his art. It looked like, yeah, he would drip like white all over the place. Let me pull up the one image in particular that kind of baffled me, even in a color scan, what the order would have been. Because he obviously just didn't do the hair. He put down a big chunk of white and let it drip, and then did the hair over top of that. Right? It has to be with that whole area there. So, and you can see there was hair back in there that got painted white over it and then dripped, and then this is white paint on top of the black. So my guess is acrylic, actually.
Yeah.
He's using some kind of acrylic paint. Yeah, because there was a whole wing there that he whited out a lot of it. But on this side, especially with that big area of drip, some of the hair had to have been put over top of the paint.
Yeah, there you go, right there.
It's cool. Very, very back and forth way of working. And I was like, man, we're doing JAE Lee. We got to do a recreation because this is crazy stuff. The one other thing I wanted to do while we've got the computer open, because people have asked questions, and I'm pretty sure the guy I stole this from is Jonathan Glapion. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but inks Greg Capullo a lot on Batman and stuff, is how to get the blue lines that we're inking over. I've seen videos of other people do it in a very complicated process. Obviously, they automate it, so they just run an action. But I had this artwork here, and I have, oops, now that I've shrunk it, it's going to be off to the side there. What I've done is I got the hue saturation HSL color.
Right.
So I can just do image adjustments, hue saturation, and then I just have it saved as a preset blue line, and that's hue 180, saturation 100, lightness 50. That's the HSL for blue line. So it's really a one-click thing. I don't even have an action for it because I just open my hue saturation and do that.
If you have a grayscale image, there's another way to do it. If you just back up one step, and the way I generally do this, that's a good one that you got right there. Is I go to image, adjustment layer, layer, new adjustment layer, and you go to sorry, my brain is new fill layer. One thing up. So I'm sorry. I just had lunch. I'm a little logy. Solid color.
Oh, okay.
And this makes a color fill, and it'll do whatever color you want. So you just make it 100% cyan.
That's nice.
0% the other ones. And then you change the blending mode to screen. And once again,
a cool one. I've never seen this before. That's nice. I like that one.
That is 100% cyan. And so, you can dial that down to 50% cyan or whatever if you want, cyan, whatever you want to call it. And then when you print it out, if you're in the right color space and it's not doing some type of space conversion, then it's just going to be that. And I make a little action for that, and then I can just run it across an entire issue worth of stuff. If you're going to print out blue lines, this is a good way to do it.
Well, the one problem I ran into with my method is I often don't want to. I don't want to print it at full saturation. When
Right.
you lighten the color, it makes a different color, and that's where I got all the dots from,
Right.
of other
Whereas
colors in there. So
whereas this
is there a way to lighten this without changing it to a different color?
yeah, when you brought up that first window, when you were able to choose, you just pick 50% cyan instead of 100% cyan.
Oh, that's way better than what I was doing.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is like the wicked easy. So one more time, go to layer,
Yeah,
new fill
layer,
layer,
new flare, solid
solid
color.
color.
Okay, because what I would do is I would get the thing I was making and then be putting it on like another layer and then just lightening the layer. But then
Right.
that color it was giving me was a lighter color. So I could do like 25% cyan.
Exactly.
Oh, Sean, we should have figured this out for Strange Death. It would have solved so much.
Well, this is one of those things that when you and I were going back and forth for a million years about it, I was, super determined to get it right. And this was basically the approach that I came up with. And since you're using this as a color adjustment layer, if you want to tweak that color, you can just tweak it to your heart's content. I use this process to simulate how a spot color is going to look too.
Yeah.
And so anytime that I'm doing something with like spot colors with line art that's eventually going to turn into line art, this is the way to do it.
Well, shit, that would have made your job a lot easier on adjusting my art if we had figured that out.
Exactly. Anyway, so we're actually going to demonstrate some of these techniques here. A few times we've asked people have asked us, like, when you're doing something like this, how do you cover up the parts of the art that you don't want to be affected by some of these techniques? And the answer is masking. In this case, you can see the areas that he masked off, and you can see that it's actually fairly, it doesn't have to be very complicated. He probably just cut a piece of paper laying around the studio that was the shape of the fist there,
Yeah.
and popped it down on top, and then he didn't really worry about it from after that. He just pulled it up when he was done. And you've got that little piece of paper laying around the studio. You can just pop it back on there if you need another layer. Unless you have lots of really intricate little pieces of something, you don't have to mess with masking fluid or any of those types of complications. I mean, I think that stuff is like, there are people who I really admire that really go full bore on it, but I don't think that's really necessary in a lot of contexts.
Yeah, I just because I was like cleaning out my closet yesterday and I had this masking paper that I was using on a painting. I'll use this. Actually, I wasn't intending on using this, but you started talking about masking. Normally what I would do is just, throw it on a light box and cut out a piece of paper, but then you got to worry about gluing it down. Or you can just use masking fluid. But
Right.
I don't think he did much masking in this piece. I think he just cleans a lot of it up with white. But I will use this. I have this big sticky sheet of paper that I'll use during the process of this because I found some last night. So
Okay.
might as well
Yeah,
get
I
big
think
rolls of it.
I think he masked the hand off because you can see that there's an edge.
Yeah.
But other than that, it doesn't look. He's just, he's accepting that texture is part of what he's doing, and he just kind of adjusts his approach as he's going. Is my thought.
Yeah, and uses the whiteout to clean up some of it. So I'll mask the hand off when we get to that part. But you ready to jump into this?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Cool. All right, go ahead and get your camera
Yeah.
set up, and I'll delete that out.
Okay. That was fun. It's nice to have a color image to look at ahead of time.
Well, we could do that for most of them.
I still wish Heritage would actually do scans instead of this. Here's a photo from our stockroom bullshit.
Oh, it would be so good historically.
And no. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, God bless him, because so much of the Alex Raymond stuff, like, at least they have that, like
Right.
we have something that's better than anything else, but a scan would be really nice too. Yeah.
I suppose people aren't throwing their stuff away. I mean, at least it still exists. But when you got you got access. I mean, it just feels like you should just do your due diligence, bastards.
Do your part for history, man.
You're gonna edit this out, right?
Yeah. Because I do appreciate what they do.
And what they don't do.
Yeah, I mean, it could be better for sure.
Okay. I've got a new little camera stand. We'll see if this works okay.
Yeah. I'm going to get started on the black because you're always faster than me.
Okay.
Although I need to get some ink that's not weeks old. Because this shit's working super dry.
Trying to get Matt Battaglia to do some spatter on his book.
Has he decided on a second tone yet?
I think he's not going to do it.
No tone.
No, like not colored.
Oh, that's too bad. I really, really like that orange that you gave him.
Yeah, me too.
Versus, yeah, obviously, versus that blue that he chose.
No, it's too cool. That's the thing, man. You can't have you can't have an active story have a cool color like that through the whole thing.
Well, and yeah, I don't know. It just kind of fit the hot apocalyptic vibe.
Right.
I thought that was a good call. I'm sad to hear that he's not going to do color. He's just going to do a dots.
I think so. Although, you know, it's a decision that can be deferred. So
yeah,
because he's going to do it all with you know, an external layer.
He's going to like basically ink it.
Exactly. Okay.
I want to try that. We should talk about that at some point because I want to try that in spots on the thing I'm working on.
Great.
Also, I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about stuff for future projects, can you put spot gloss on any paper, or does it have to be of a certain weight for it to take?
That is a good question. I will have to find out. I think it can be on anything, but
because I'm coming up with a lot of ideas for how spot gloss can be used in my book, because it's going to have a ghost, and I thought we could print the ghost in entirely spot gloss and have it show up not even as in a full figure, but just as like it starts to show up in just like one or two lines. So when you're looking at it, it's just like, huh, like what is that weird little, like, you know, like you it would just be like the page would kind of sparkle for a second and you'd be like, what is that?
That's awesome.
But I wanted to make sure it could be put on paper without like fucking it up.
I don't think it should be an issue. Okay, let's does my view look okay? Or you think I should be more flat on?
If you can get more flat on, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about a Formalism Friday about spot gloss, and somebody mentioned the spirit or something, and all of a sudden all of us got a little quiet in a suspicious way.
Well, and I had that story ready to go, and I was like,
right.
oh fuck, like that's what we need to do. Like, and there's so many instances in it, like her looking in the mirror and then like having a spot gloss drawing of the thing flicker over her real quick. Just so many little things where it's not just gimmicky, it's like part of the story.
Right. That's great. All right, shall we do it?
Yeah, let's give it a kind of pause and another clap just so I can locate it.
Okay.
Okay, Sean's all set up. I've started inking already because Sean's always faster than me, but what's your assumption here, Sean?
Well, I'm looking through all of the stuff here, and you know, I generally tend to assume that people start with the largest things in a picture or the faces, just because, we have a tendency to, we human beings are narcissists. We like faces, we like dynamic expressions and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that almost everything here is done with a brush, except for the spatter, which is obviously toothbrush or something, and then the razor blade, and the hatching on the hand looks like a pen. But I mean, it looks like everything else is a brush, right?
Yeah, I think my assumption is that there's a big initial drawing that's pretty much just a big black and white drawing, no hatching or rendering yet. That's just breaking up into light and dark, and then the
Right.
spatters happen, and then the razor blades and all of the other stuff.
So are you
that's how
using
I'm
your
picturing
normal brush today?
Yeah.
I was looking at it, at his brush, and seeing how, wigged out all the lines are, and I pulled out a brush that's dying. So this is a sable brush. It's a Trekell Kolinsky sable, but it's already got a little bit of a split tip happening. Because this,
Oh
to
yeah,
me,
I
looks
don't
like,
have a good brush. I
okay,
don't
good.
have like a fresh brush. I don't, but see, my brushes are like, um, there's like the strange death brushes, which those were good for 10 pages at most. And
Right.
then they just turn into a brush anyone else would use.
Right.
You know, and then there's like the really beat up ones. So I've just got one of the, it's not a bad brush, but it's not one that I would go use to do like what Dave calls the nightingale lines anymore. I mean, maybe it kind of depends on the day too. Like a brush that you think is bad, like you could pick it up, and depending how you washed it last time and how the bristles have set together, it could be like a really good brush again for a day, and then a shit brush the next day. It's weird.
Right. I tend to just abandon stuff like that, and I put it in a special jar that's just for my effects. Like this one. The only reason I keep this around is because it's split in an attractive way. So, you can notice I've got a little bit of dry brush already happening here.
Yeah, and you'll
So
notice I have blue tape on mine. Like I have different tape that I stick on the ends of them instead of having, like you're saying, you have a special jar for them. I just have tape that kind of demarcates where they're at in that process of like
gotcha.
acceptable or not.
And so we didn't really talk about JAE Lee's background at all, but I saw him, I was assuming from his last name and from some of the Catholic imagery and stuff, but uh, I saw him referenced as Korean American. Do
Yeah.
you happen to know if he's like what generation, back the Koreanness is? If he speaks
No,
Korean?
I don't know.
Oh, you
What
know what?
is
There's a reference to him speaking Korean in the back of one of the books, so he must, or someone, something about him, someone approaching him, and what he thought was someone speaking in a mispronounced Korean. So, what I'm specifically wondering is if his calligraphic approach, he obviously works with a big brush and he works quick. I'm wondering if he has a, calligraphic language background.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I just know that like in the trade paperback, Jim Lee does an intro and says, "No, we're not related." Everyone wants to know if Jim Lee and JAE Lee are related. But it's like high praise for his artwork. And yeah, I don't really know, even though I've been a fan of his for a while. I don't know too much more about his background. Okay, so this is an area here that I think had a big black mark on the finger, and he just sprayed a lot of white on it
Right.
to lighten it down. I'm interested with the Catholicism. Is that something? I wouldn't think you would typically get that in like a first generation Korean background, would you?
Oh, sure. That's I mean, I'm maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here. All of the Korean kids that I knew in high school who were like second generation were Christian of one stripe or another. I thought that Catholicism was a particularly, taken up in Korea, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that Christianity in general is very popular there.
I don't know. I went to school with but like when I went to grad school, like every department had like at least one person that was an international student from Korea, and I don't remember any of them talking about that. But
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't spend a lot of time talking to anyone at art school about their religious background either.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Is that we're all a bunch of heathens.
So this hair is the thing that was encouraging me to get out my nastiest brush.
Yeah.
Because you can see how quick the hairlines are, and you can see how much of them are split. Do you think that's understood what I mean when I say split?
Like the brush is split, yeah.
Yeah, look.
It's creating like a dry brush. I'm gonna do it right now.
Can you see the tines in my brush there?
Yeah.
So my brush is actually split into like 3 different lines right now.
And so you let the brush do, like, you basically use the fact that the brush is hair,
right?
And you use that to your advantage to draw hair. He's very good at letting his materials do work for him.
I'm going to loosen up. Mine is going to look less like a copy in these areas because I'm actually trying to get the flavor of it, which is basically impossible while following the exact trajectory of the lines.
Well, and also this is like out of all of the ones that we've done, and we've done some pretty wild with like Topi and stuff, because of the buildup on this one.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's absolutely no chance that we could trace this one because we're going to have to spatter ink over the areas where there was a lot of hatching done. And so just that information is going to go away. I mean, I have it pulled up on screen so I can at least get a general sense for where he was doing hatching.
Yeah, I should be more bold with my black application. I'm being a little bit conservative. I'm still not thinking like the artist here. He definitely, you're right, blacked in big, large areas and then softened them up as he went.
Yeah, it's
actually very satisfying.
Yeah, this is a really interesting process. And you could see why, like at a time he was known for like kind of legendarily fast. And Jim Lee talks about that in the intro. He said Image always had trouble with guys being late, and we brought JAE Lee over and we had like no worries about him being late because he was known for being like this wicked fast artist. It winds up being like, a year between each issue, and it was like, what the hell's going on? But it was entirely due to all that like reading and research. And I think probably there's a number of things where he's showing like, well, this is my first attempt at this issue 1 and I entirely abandoned it and rewrote it. And I just think there was a lot of that.
I'm always intrigued when I see people who have such a painterly approach to line art, because to me the disciplines can stay fairly separated and segregated from each other. But then you see somebody like JAE Lee who has the chops to push it so far. It's really quite impressive.
Yeah, and that's something like, it's weird. I want to paint more like I draw oftentimes, because I'm
Right.
more calligraphic with the brush when I draw than when I paint.
You've fallen under the spell of Wachowski. How do you
Anthony Wachoulis.
Yeah.
I paint like, yeah, I often paint like I'm drawing with a colored pencil.
Right. I have to tell you, I hate colored pencils. I hate it so much.
Oh yeah, so do I.
I just feel like, frankly, and all respect to Mr. Wachoulis, and his stuff is stunning, but like I just don't get the purpose of it. To me, like the vitality of something is the hand. the vitality of it is seeing the path that the artist took across the paper.
Yeah, and his stuff is like the hand is almost entirely removed. But I mean, I own one of his pieces. Like, it's just obviously he's one of my favorite, and obviously I've gone down that road in my art in a lot of different ways. But I agree. Like, I want to see, especially as I get older, I think that's to me, I want to see the calligraphy. I want to see the expression. So that's what I was saying. It's funny to me when people talk about drawing more like a painter, because I want to paint more like I draw.
Right.
And like use the brush as a tool, use the brush to get a shape in. But I know what you mean. It is the JAE Lee is somebody who draws painter, because he's building in layers. That's what one of the big things is that you don't usually get drawing in ink, is this real willingness. Jason Sean Alexander is someone else who I think has taken a lot of these techniques that JAE Lee has kind of abandoned and run with them.
Well, and I think that the subtractive elements is a big part of it. If you don't
yeah, totally.
If you don't have the subtractive elements, then you can't layer in the same way with pen and ink, because if you just go in with black, every mark I make is subtracting light from my picture.
Yeah. And you got to be able to put the whites back in.
Right. It's not like, you know, when you're painting with opaque colors, maybe this is obvious. Forgive me if I'm being too obvious. When you're painting with opaque colors, you can paint a lighter color on top and, you know, bring some liveliness back. But if you're doing watercolor or you're doing black, you know, black only and no subtractive portions, every mark you make is removing light. And so you have to be able to have some subtractive processes to recover.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that's held me back is, like you said, oh God, that whiteout you've got's terrible, the bleed proof white. I got it because it said bleed proof.
Right.
It is absolutely not bleed proof.
Yeah, it's a marketing lie.
It re-wets. So I think I just need to, I need to get some white acrylic and start using white acrylic, because I think even gouache re-wets pretty bad.
Right.
Do you think there's any dry brush in this? It looks to me like he just puts in really big solid shapes pretty much on the black layers.
I think you're right. I think the only dry brush that I'm really seeing in here is the hair.
I mean, I'm going to throw some dry brush in just for the hell of it, but I don't think it's going to make a big difference to how much it looks like his work or not.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable to look at it so far. It doesn't look anything like his at all, because it's just so brutal looking.
Yeah, I mean, you're really kind of taking the Frank Miller approach of like stark blacks against stark whites. That's kind of what you got to do. And then, I mean, really, like, I'm shaping out the hand based on what he's got, but he went back over and like whited some of that out to reform that edge. So there is that painterly aspect of like resculpting the form with the opaque materials.
And something that we've come back to a couple times. So this is not just a constructive drawing. He didn't just construct this in pencil and then execute it in ink. It's a reactive drawing as well, responsive drawing, because he's looking at what he's doing and finding things to adjust and respond to. I'm thinking that I'm trying to mentally imagine this. And I know I was saying earlier that I didn't think there was any nib until the hand, but I actually think maybe he worked out the face a little bit more with the nib.
That could be because there's not, well, I don't know. The way I've got it's like pretty, I think that's step one.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he worked out the face, but maybe not. To me, it's like I could get back to that and not really worry about it. But yeah, I mean, he might have gone in and done some of these. Like big motions.
Well, one of the things I look for when I'm trying to decide, you know, what was happening here is like, did the teeth and the face and the expression look correct, look finished with the black that we just put in, you know? And to me, it looks like the expression is not rendered yet until you have those hatching lines that are in there. Do you
Some
know what I
of
mean?
them maybe some of the finer ones are like put in later. And really, for like how chaotic his stuff is, he's got a really elegant sense of line. Like he's got a lot of these really delicate, I mean, and this is a color image of him, so it's not like it's just blown out. He's just got a super fine line that is coming across a lot of these areas. I'm having a hard time getting my pen to even do it. It's just kind of, okay, there we go. The paper's warped up because of all the black that I put down.
Right. Yeah, I'm inking on paper that is not gonna accept my nib.
And I'm really worried about the drawing on top of the white that I'm going to put down. But I'm pretty sure that's what he was doing. Okay, so queso. Well, shit, there had to be black on the thumb too, because that's white spatter rather than black spatter over here. I think. I don't know. Maybe it's
I think
it's
he
hard to
hatched.
tell too. Some of it could be a combination of like black and white spatter.
I think he hatched across the whole thumbnail and then whited it out on afterwards to make it more of a highlight, to make it more of a focal point.
I'm talking about the gradient of white into the black. It looks like that was solid black underneath.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was definitely some contour work that he did here.
I like the shaky lines on the inside of the face, this like mouth area, and like the dental attention.
Yeah. Well, in these areas that are like loopy kind of lines just going across, kind of creating different patches to hatch within.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really interesting too. Again, I think a lot of it was done after all the splattering. So I'm going to get to the splattering.
Okay.
Also, I'm getting ink on myself. This is going to get dirty. So I'm going to use this special masking tape paper that I have, and we'll see how well it reacts to the ink. I think it should go pretty well. But this would be like putting down like the zipatone without dots on it, and then the intention is to take it back off, but just
Right.
like a sticky plastic paper. The nice thing about this is you don't need a light board or anything, so I can just put this on here and then really still be able to see my drawing, so I can cut off all of the. And a lot of times if you mask off just with paper, you got to worry about, is the ink going to get like up underneath the paper? So I quite like this stuff. Like I said, I have this because I was using it for painting, but I think this works really well.
Yeah, it seems cool.
And it will let you get really precise too. You don't have to worry about like, oh, if a shape, I don't know, gets more complicated or has like a hole in it and you're trying to keep. I'm gonna mask out the thumbnail too. I don't think there's any white out on the thumbnail, or at least I don't want to deal with it.
The reason I was wondering about the whether he would have learned calligraphy as a kid, um, I have a particular anecdote that I was thinking about. When I was a teacher, I was a recipient of something called a Japan Memorial Fulbright Scholarship. Fulbright, which was like a visitation program for high school for teachers to come visit. And I remember visiting a high school, and there being some display where they were going to give the American teachers some experience with like these large calligraphic Japanese brushes, used for like ceremonial writing or something like that. And they had them at the school because everybody who grows up there has some amount of experience with that type of thing, even if it's not like something you do every day. Because you have a letter, your language has a letter form that is traditionally formed with a brush only.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was just the novelty when I was able to just pick up a brush and I just started doodling somebody who was across from me with this brush. The response was quite funny because people were just basically like, he knows how to use a big brush.
Yeah,
Where did you learn?
I have my colleague who just left for another position was Chinese, and she brought in a friend of hers who's Japanese to do a demo for us, a workshop, and they were showing us some of the basic shapes because I was really interested. I was
Right.
asking him, what are some of the basic shapes you learn? And they were showing, but in both cultures, just the real, like, that there is a training from a young age
Oh yeah.
of the brushwork. And I was kind of sad. Do you think maybe, okay, I've got the splatters in there, and he obviously, a lot of time when I do a splatter, I'll do a couple off to the side because you get those bigger blobs.
Right.
But he was
He
letting the
doesn't do
bigger
that.
blobs get in there, which is
Yeah.
cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
put some splatter over here to create a bit of a gradient. Here I'm gonna like flick out. So I think he flicked out the big stuff over here
Right.
because you get those big splatters. And then worked into these areas. And I think if you splatter black and then splatter white, you'll get a little bit better of a gradient. So I'm thinking he might have done that.
And are you doing it with your hand?
Yeah, how do you do it?
That's wild. I've never seen that.
How do you do this?
Well, I was trained over the phone by Gerhard.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I interviewed Gerhard back for the Comics Journal back in 2010, I asked him naively, how in the world did you do that sequence in Church and State 2 with the snow and everything? He's like, oh, Dave used that technique too. I called it the poor man's airbrush.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Oh,
How did you do it without your hand?
against a piece of cardboard.
Oh, they just rake
I
cardboard? No, I just got my thumb.
That's wild. I've never done that.
And you could get too, you'll see a lot of artists, they'll start taking their thumbprint,
Right.
and I would think that would be a good time to do it.
But that's also that's also in Church and State too. It's interesting. There's
Some
thumbprints in
thumbprint
there.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm surprised that he wasn't doing this and getting his finger inky. And then, yeah, I'm just using my thumb. I've always done it this way. Well, I do call it the poor man's airbrush. I don't know if I got that from reading Dave talk about it, but
or reading that interview with Gerhard, huh?
yeah, potential. I don't know. I feel like I've called it that for a long time. I
Well,
also wonder
2010 is a long time ago.
yeah, but I've used this technique. Like I think looking at JAE Lee had gotten interested in trying to create all my shading with spattering. So there's some old art that I still have where for a couple like little trial sequences, I was masking off and trying to do all my shading. I also wonder if he didn't take the toothbrush afterwards and
Oh, for the
do.
hair. Look at that. I'm gonna go get my toothbrush. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I wonder if there's not some toothbrush in the hair. I don't know. I'm gonna use it because it looks cool. And it creates more of that chaos. Not saying he did that, but I would do that. Yeah, that looks great. Oops, I got a little too wild with it. Oh well. That's what the white's for. Okay, now I'm really gonna have to clean my I only have one toothbrush. I'm really gonna have to clean this off. I'm gonna try and create a little bit better gradient with the black actually.
Okay, so as far as I know, this is the quote unquote standard method. I don't think I can bring myself to put my hand in the ink directly.
Oh.
So if you pour just a little bit of ink on your cardboard, oh shit. Would you like to guess where I also poured it? Okay.
All
here's my
over.
Here's my toothbrush. And this way you can kind of rub it in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then these, like Carson was saying, the first few spatters are going to be the real heavy stuff. And the closer you get, the more directional seeming it's going to be.
That's gonna take you forever, dude. You gotta use your thumb.
Oh, it's not that slow once you get going.
Oh, okay.
See? And you can even use the cardboard as a shield. So this is why I was saying I didn't need that much masking, because you can kind of, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, my dumb ass has been doing it like a fucking caveman my whole life.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying the caveman is wrong. And then you know, the thing that some people are missing about this particular technique is you got to go in afterwards and white out any big blobs that are distracting. You got to kind of unfocus your eyes and make sure
he
that
kind of
everything.
used the blobs to his advantage, so I don't think he was like, I don't think JAE Lee was whiting out any blobs, at least on this piece.
Right. Well, if you want it to look like, if you're doing white and you want it to look like snow or something like that,
Yeah.
you want to beware of the ones that are distracting.
Okay, so my plastic masking, there you go. You got a clean hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that looks fantastic, man. That is some clean, nice edge. It really got some pop to it.
Yeah, now we got to go the other way with the white. So that's the next step, I believe. Now, on the white, I don't get the sense that there was any masking anywhere.
Right.
And he's definitely not letting it blob up, but that may be because the whatever white he was using was a little thicker. I don't know. I'm gonna have to play with my white to I don't know. It's been a while since I've done this. This is the way I first learned this was to create stars.
Right.
Someone showed me this as a way to create stars in your image. I think my white's a little dry. I don't know. We'll find out. No, this is pretty good. Okay.
This is way trickier than normal because I'm having to do it and keep it on in camera at the same time.
Yeah.
This is normally like the most fun part of a piece, and instead I'm finding it kind of agonizing.
Oh, maybe I need your cardboard technique, because then I could really control the extra splatter.
Right.
I'm just getting really close to the page. And I think I really messed up. I think there should be some more black in where I'm at that I'm whiting out, but whatever. Close enough for rock and roll. And Jay Lee is very close enough for sloppy garage punk. This is not prog rock.
Right, which is interesting to me. Why, his heavy photo reference reliance, on, or maybe I shouldn't say reliance, because I mean obviously guy's a monster. He obviously strayed into that heavily referenced territory, and it's interesting to compare that with his surface.
Well, and if you go to like the next thing he did, which was a project for Marvel, a really good run on Inhumans, it really cleans up and takes on more of that photo referenced look. Like where all of the craziness, oops, I got my ink a little wet. All of the craziness goes away and it's focused just on the black and white and the line work, which I really loved that Inhumans book when it came out, but I was also kind of sad to see the loss of,
Right,
the wilder aspects.
Wild Man.
Yeah.
What you got? Any tips from? Oh, you know what? I like the thumb too. Okay, I'm on board. I think both. I'm gonna go with both. I'm just gonna, yeah. I got to just do it with one finger only. That way I can feel okay about it.
Yeah, I'm having to like not flick it as much because now my paint was kind of too thick, so I watered it up, but now it's like really, I'm having trouble controlling the directionality of it. And
So you got any thoughts for me on mine so far? We don't usually do a lot of cross referencing, but would you look at mine for a second? What do you think? Other
yeah,
than
I
this,
think, yeah, that's the big splatters. Although I really do think it's thumb because like you'll see mine has those bigger chunky splatters that he got.
yeah,
And I don't know if that's just like you're cleaning the brush out too much or if that's a
I think you're
thumb
right.
thing.
I did a little bit too much like scumbling on my palette pre. I got
Yeah,
this.
I really think that he just dunked it and sprayed it up there. And then use the finer stuff elsewhere. And it's cool. It's really cool how he's like on the shoulder here, he's like he's shading, he's creating form
Right.
with the splattering, which is really controlled splatter that's kind of hard to pull off. So I'm assuming lots of twisting and turning.
Right. I'm gonna use a white, titanium white gouache here.
Okay, we'll see how that works. And more control in this than I thought because of the splatter needing to be controlled. I'm also struggling, I don't know about you, but against the blue line print creating darker values, so I don't have a really great sense of if I've got the values right or not.
Right.
Which if you were just doing this on your own and like creating this painted technique that he's got, you wouldn't be struggling against that.
No, you would just be enjoying yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I'm just gonna get some, oh, he has some good spray up here. And really, you kind of gotta, it's gotta be, this is like more like painting to me in the sense that there's steps and you're playing chess with yourself. Like you're having to, okay, what I'm doing now is going to set me up for what I want to accomplish later.
Right.
And that's sophisticated to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's similar to what we were talking about with the Cam Kennedy thing, where when I'm looking at this just naked on its own right, as a person who hasn't done a lot of these techniques over and over again, I just think, holy hell, how do you arrive at that? And then when you actually think about like doing a monthly book and doing a couple pages a day or whatever, you realize that like he's developing these things over time.
Well, and looking at presidents, looking at Sienkiewicz and other artists that he likes that are kind of wild, and you're like,
Right.
oh yeah, I really like that technique. Okay, I'm gonna employ that. Okay, so I think I'm spattered up pretty good. I got a little bit. Well, he goes in and paints some white there, anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at. So go ahead and take your toothbrush and kind of jam it on the edge there. I don't know. I'm not. I'm
Oh,
just not
like
getting
tap
the.
at it with the dried up toothbrush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not getting enough. I feel like I need a thicker application or something.
I think I've got enough of the white. But now the next step, I think, is getting your brush and painting in some white to like really define an edge. Like on the shoulder, I think he goes back in, you can see, and like, yeah, this stuff's so thick now. Like
And the knuckles too.
Yeah.
You could see he just decided that he painted too much, or that he got it too dark on the hand, and so he also used that to sort of draw out the image.
And
And then
this is the point. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the eye, I mean the eye thing too. You know, it's funny. I was talking about like look at that. You could just use the toothbrush to do it.
Yeah, the toothbrush was really cool for the hair.
So I'm already getting it. You see that?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to do that. I'm focusing right now on like reshaping out some of the form with the brush.
I have no reference now. I'm not looking at it on a screen, so this is going to
Okay.
start deviating pretty significant from his image.
I've got it pulled up on a screen so I can still try and get some of the techniques. Yeah, and a lot of the areas that I think might be razor blade, I'm also like, you know, I don't know. That could be some, like you're doing some paint and some razor blade.
You might just start with the paint, and if you can't, you know, get what you want, or you don't get it
Yeah.
opaque enough or whatever, then
The
you
real
start
thing
in with
I'm
something
worried
else.
about is then drawing back over the paint with the pen, because he's definitely doing that in spots. And I'm not sure I'm using the right white for that.
Yeah, I definitely think that almost all the eye stuff is razor blade, but I can start to get an approximation of it here. It's the telltale places is where the lines are overlapping each other.
Yeah, you can see the paper tearing.
Mm-hmm.
But there might be some like, well, actually, I think that stuff came in later because it goes over some of the hatching. I think that's the last stuff.
The razor blade.
Yeah.
Really just think about how fun this image is.
Oh yeah, how fun it is to make, how fun it is to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go to the. He's got such thin lines, it's hard to imagine that that's being inked over all of this splatter, but it has to have been. I've got a bad nib too. I'll switch out my nib. But I really like the airbrush effect. That's. Oops. Uh-oh. I pushed the button. My desk's going up and down. My drawing started floating off to heaven. Okay, so. Yeah, it's so hard to draw over all of this speckling. I don't know.
Some
There's
of
so
this might
much.
have been at later, you know, he might have come back when it was dry and his brain was fresh.
Well, it's not that. It's just there's texture now, but he's drawing clean lines over top of the texture. like there's obviously splatter that he's drawing on top of, and I don't know how he's getting. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. He's getting such thin lines, and then like my nib is picking up like material in it. I don't know. This is crazy. Yo, JAE LEE, I'm gonna tag you on Instagram, and we need to know how you draw on top of all this texture. I'll try and get
I'm not gonna be able to do the
interview with
razor
you.
blade on this paper.
What kind of paper you got?
Oh, yeah, I just ripped a hole in it.
It's not Bristol board.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so this isn't gonna cut it. Get it?
Yeah. Well, it is gonna cut it.
So I'm going to be unable to proceed from here, and that's fortunate for me because I'm actually out of time anyway.
Okay.
But we've got an awful lot of razor blade drawing in our video on Sergio Tope.
Yeah.
Topi. If you want to see some more attempts at us trying on really heavy duty textural effects. Are you going to continue yours a little while here, Carson?
Yeah, I'm gonna play with the hand a little bit. It's just the thing that's baffling me is the drawing over the texture, because there's obviously some of that, and I'm not quite sure how that works.
It's not happening with your bleed proof white, huh?
No, well, and whether it's the bleed proof white or not, so much as look, you've been spraying at this thing, and then you're drawing on top of the spray, so you've got all these bumps that the pen has to go across. But to me, it looks like, it's not a bumpy line. It's not like he's drawing on a toothy surface. So I don't know how that works. I mean, I can kind of do it, but I'm getting way thicker lines than he's getting. Oh, there we go. It's just his ability to consistently get thin lines.
Yep.
Oh, a big old blob.
Yeah, I think you might just have the wrong tool for it too, because a crow quill is going to cut through that a lot more than, if you're using a slightly less aggressively tipped pen.
What do you think he was using then? It's got to
Oh,
be a dip pen.
Yeah, but just something that doesn't have as much has a slightly rounded tip to it.
No, maybe, but there's really delicate thin lines. I mean, almost like impossibly. Oh, maybe you just gotta. It looks like he's going fast, but maybe you just gotta slow down a little bit.
The other possibility is too that it's just it's a white that's just radically different than what you're using. People who are wanting opaque whites, I would say that the thing to try a deleter makes the white and yellow bottle of deleter is probably the best one I've ever used. But even that, I never got through a whole bottle. I'd always use like a third of it, and then it would go bad. But much better than the bleed proof white, much better than a lot of the other options out there. The stuff I used today was okay in places. When I used it directly, this looks really good, but when you have any amount of water at all, it suddenly is not going to work for you. Well, I'm going to retire now, but Carson's going to continue, and that means you'll get to have Carson full screen.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. Well, I don't know that I'm going to spend much more time with this, because I'd obviously not got the right tool. And I can't imagine that he slowed down this much for the hatching.
No.
And even then, it's like, I wonder if maybe he was working on some different surface that he could like sand back out the texture.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know. That seems like a weird step to take then. But the biggest problem I'm facing is drawing line work on top of the texture. I don't know how to pull that off.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find some originals where I did that successfully. I'm pretty sure I was using the deleter at the time. And I think that getting a real consistently smooth texture out of your white was the thing that made it possible.
But were you doing the spray technique?
No, that's true.
See, that's what I'm running into is the spray technique. Like it doesn't matter what white you use, it's going to create
right, bumps.
And then drawing across the bumps. Well, okay, here's a rounder tool. That works a little better. Yeah. But his lines are so thin on top of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
you can get nibs that are thin as well as not pointy. But
that could be the trick then. But
yeah,
it's not just that there's the white. The areas that are a flat white are not too bad to draw over. They actually are kind of smooth to draw over. It's where I've sprayed it that it becomes a problem, because it's a super toothy surface at that point.
right.
But I really like the combination of hatching with the speckling to create like really sophisticated gradients.
Yeah, the chaos that you get from the spatter really offsets the sort of control that a parallel hatching can accidentally give to an image.
Yeah.
Well, hats off to you, JAE Lee, and thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. And
You guys have-
I'll go a little bit further and I'll do some razor blade.
Sounds good. I'm gonna bow out now, guys.
All right. Later, Sean.
Enjoy the rest of the video.
Enjoy Carson's struggle. Another thing is, I wonder if he did some of this and went and sprayed some more white. I don't know. I'll admit though, this is kind of baffling me a little bit more than I thought. I thought I kind of understood the process here. But the one thing that was that worried me a little bit was drawing on top of the white, and that is proving to be the thing I can't get. So I don't know. I'm going to give up on that, but I'm going to do the razor blade technique just so we have the full range of techniques. He does have a really, really thin line too. So this tool that I'm using, let me see if I can ink it in the face at least. I want to do some of that. That's one of the things I like about JAE Lee's work is these crazy thin like crosshatch lines amidst all the chaos. So this area is easier because I haven't got as much white buildup on there. And I like the way he defines like patches to hatch within, which normally is something I would stay away from, but he pulls it off really well. Like for instance, he's created, and Sergio Topi does this too. So I wonder if there's some influence there. But he's created like a little patch within which he's going to crosshatch. And again, he's got a really delicate line in there, almost like razor blade sharp. But he like outlines these patches like this first and then kind of hatches within them. And maybe there was like a layer of this first that was the thinner stuff, and then all the spraying happened, and then he went back in and reestablished some of it. Like maybe I got the order there wrong. I'm not sure. It's really hard to tell even looking at color images of color scans of his work. But a lot of fun. Really makes me regret the way I draw. Being so controlled. At some point I'm gonna have to do a like cut loose and ink like I'm a painter, since I do paint. I'll have to do a project like that at some point in my life. I think there might have been some cross hatching and stuff up under here that he sprayed over. So maybe there was more back and forth on that than I thought. Anyways, let's get some razor blades and see what we can do. And this again, some of this might have been white paint, but it's that tear of the paper that Sean was talking about that's kind of indicative of a razor blade. Although I'm not getting any ink to come off this way. There we go. Right, there we go. You just have to scrape back and forth. And another thing that's indicative of the razor blade is there's a stutter. There's a stutter to a lot of how it tears up the paper. But you get like a kind of a dotted, stippled line. But then he's scraping back into the white. Maybe you have to be a little more controlled, or maybe there has to be white put back on top. Maybe the razor came earlier. I don't know. And there's some nice like curvy marks like that. This is really crazy shit. It's a real really mysterious balance between chaos and control. And I mean, I think that's why we all love JAE Lee's art so much, right? And Sienkiewicz and people like that. That's what puts them at the top of the game for so many people. Is you got to be able to cut loose like this, but then have enough control to like pull off a beautiful little swoopy line like that and have everything start and stop exactly where you want it to go for the most part. And you got all this extra paper hanging around you got to get rid of. Probably go back and do some more splattering. Anyways, that's my best attempt at a JAE Lee. I don't think it's that bad. It's just the hatching stuff that I'm really unhappy with. Anyways, it'll be interesting to compare mine and Sean's and JAE Lee's, and especially on something like this where it's had to be in the spirit of it. Actually, one more thing I would do, because I got a little carried away here with the hair, is go back in and try and clean up the hair to match his a little bit better. Got a little carried away with the toothbrush effect. Oh no, that looks terrible. Oops. Ruined it even worse. Disconnect that. Oh, and the other thing that I noticed that he did is he really came back along the hand and cleaned up all the splatter there, and that just really popped that out. And I don't think there's too much of that on the thumb, but I feel like my thumb is not popping out the way I want it to. So I'm going to go back over with like some dry brush white and just pop out the edge of that thumb a little bit. And it looks a little harsher in person, but I think you would develop an instinct over time too of like how much is going to get transferred over when you photograph it or scan it. And also we're dealing with the pretty heavy blue line getting in the way there. Let's go reestablish the white from the scratching. So some of the actual value is difficult to see. Oh, and I can do a dry brush over the speckles. So that's scumbling that Sean was talking about. That's a painting technique. So you might even be able to scumble back over the cross hatching in areas. That's a really, really fun way to work. So JAE Lee has been and continues to be one of my heroes. We'd love to talk to you about how you do all this. I personally would love to see Hellshot continue, but some of my favorite comics, and God, I hope to work like this at some point in my life. All right, everybody, thanks for following along. I hope you enjoyed it.